The Bengals are hoping to snap a 3-game losing streak under the Monday night lights against the Jacksonville Jaguars. In Jacksonville, we get the latest on the Jags in our crossover preview with Tony Wiggins. This was a really, really fun show. Let's dive into it right here on Locked On Bengals.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome into the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm James Rapien. I'll be joined by Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars in just a minute. Full disclosure, we used to host Locked On NFL together, so all of the funny jokes and the back and forth, well, it's because we've worked together for a long, long time and have a good relationship. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. We will have you covered. I know it's kind of weird with the Monday game. Players and coaches, they don't start to talk and practice until Thursday. Thursday and Friday is the new Wednesday, Thursday, which means our game preview show will actually drop on Sunday. Jake Lisco will be back for that. He will be back for our show tomorrow as well, wrapping up the week, where we discuss a bunch of stuff. But make sure, if you're looking for a gift this season, because I've been told I don't talk about it enough, Enter the Jungle. It's a comprehensive book. You can see it above my shoulder on YouTube. You can get it at CincinnatiBengalsBook.com, wherever books are sold, season by season, a bunch of awesome photos and more. So make sure you check that out. And without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Tony Wiggins. As part of our crossover, we started with the biggest storylines surrounding the Jaguars.
My first biggest storyline is can't get caught sleeping at the wheel if you're Jacksonville, thinking everything's sweet just because Joe Burrow is missing. You know, as far as I'm concerned, is Coach Anarumo still over there? He's still there, right?
Yeah, Lou Anarumo. Yeah,
Anarumo's still over there and calling plays. They still got a defensive end named Hendrickson or something like that. He's still there, right?
Yeah.
They got a wide receiver, Jamar Chase, and look, they're still a dangerous, wounded football team. And what the Jaguars can't do is sit here and lay an egg because they have a 2-game lead in the AFC South. I'm very weary of games like this because it is the NFL and you can get got by anybody. The Jaguars' last game of last year was against the Tennessee Titans at home in front of the whole country with a playoff game at stake, and they were losing with 2 minutes to go, and Josh Dobbs was the quarterback. So we know what it's like when a team that has pride, a team that is used to winning, comes in wounded, and you think it's okay, and then all of a sudden the game starts to ebb and flow, and it doesn't go your way. I'm weary that the Jaguars will allow that to happen.
The biggest storyline for the Bengals is simple. Can you be that sleeper team now that teams overlook, and can you make a playoff push without Joe Burrow? And as I say that, I can feel our listeners and viewers on the Bengals side of things cringing, because a lot of them are thinking about the draft and about the offseason and offseason moves. Well, the Bengals aren't thinking that way internally. They're thinking, all right, we've dropped 3 straight. We have to respond. We're still in the thick of the playoff race. We got to get a win in Jacksonville. And can they? Yeah, they can. Will they? Well, that's a whole nother topic. And I think the reality started to set in that it wasn't going to be, and they knew that without Joe Burrow, it was going to change things. But when they lost to Pittsburgh the other day, a game that they probably felt like they should have won with how Pittsburgh turned the ball over in the red zone, and the Bengals gave it right back in the red zone, and it kind of cost them. But it was a game that was there to be stolen in the division. And to lose that 16-10, I think they're like, oh, is this who we are now? So the biggest storyline for me is this who the Bengals are, or are they going to be this sneaky, feisty, scrappy team that still has Jamar Chase and is probably going to get some of their talent back that was out last week, including a T. Higgins, maybe a Cam Taylor-Britt. And they certainly have talent to be scrappy and to be a problem and to be more than just a a speed bump for these teams that are clearly eyeing the top seeds in the AFC, like the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's the storyline: is who are these Bengals? Are they going to win just a game or two the rest of the way and not really be that competitive? Or are they going to be competitive and be a tough out, even though they don't have Joe Burrow?
A lot of teams win individual games without great quarterbacks. They usually don't win those games when there's a significant drop off and the quarterback just got hurt. So when you say a 3-game losing streak, I'm thinking at some point that kid's going to get better. And at some point he's going to be more serviceable, almost a Tommy DeVito type, how they upset somebody last week when, everybody thought that they were done. I don't want him to wake up this week, right? I don't want things to click this week. And when you have a defensive coordinator that can dial stuff up, when you have a running back who can carry the load, he can get 25 carries. And when you have a receiver, all you got to do is get him the ball on quick out, and he can do whatever he has to do, and you can start manufacturing first downs. Jacksonville has to make sure that they don't get caught in that formula NFL type game where special teams, and then you got a kicker who can kick it from St. Augustine, so he can make kicks too. Those things are dangerous. And I'll say it like this: a couple of years ago, Jacksonville went to Cincinnati on a Thursday night. That's the whole, that's the game where Urban Meyer probably should have just got on the airplane and come back.
Should have just went back. What you doing, Urban?
Jaguars were horrible, and that game, and that's the year Cincinnati, I believe, went to the Super Bowl.
It is,
and it came down to a kick at the end of the game, and that's what I'm afraid of with this, and we have to really, really make sure we guard against it.
Yeah, that game, it sort of turned the goal line stand late in the second quarter. Jaguars almost went up 21-0 in that game.
They absolutely did. I remember.
It was like, what the heck is going on here? Are you going to wake up? And the Bengals did and snuck out a win. But I agree with you. I think Jacksonville, we've talked a lot on Locked On Bengals about quick starts and the importance of that. The Jaguars do not want to let the Bengals get confidence that, this is going to be different. We are going to respond. Or you go 3-and-out to start the game, and then you give up points on that first drive to Jake Browning. You just don't want that. You don't want him to feel like he's in any sort of rhythm. And so I think that is important for a team that's trying to find itself in the post-Burrow era. And you're right. There's a lot of talent. I was preparing for this, just looking at the matchups, and there are some good matchups that we should get into that involve a couple of guys that you already mentioned and some that we haven't mentioned yet.
And we absolutely will get into those matchups. We always have to make sure we don't overtalk it and stay on here an hour because of how we vibe, but we won't do that to you here, the listeners. We're going to talk more Jaguars and Bengals more Monday night. We might even get into some culinary stuff a little bit. We're seeing what we're going to feed James since he comes to North Florida here on tomorrow. We'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Bengals Thursday crossover. All right, I got to tell you guys about PrizePicks. It is Thursday. It is the crossover show, and PrizePicks is our sponsor for the day. And they are also the #1 daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Now, you can't just do it without going to prizepicks.com or downloading the app, or just go to prizepicks.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL, all lower caps, prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNFL, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for a deposit match up to $100. I'll repeat that. Go to prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNFL and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I got beat out last night by 0.5 point, but that's all right. I chose the flex option and I still cashed out. You can do the same thing at PrizePicks. Make sure you use the promo code today.
Today's show is also brought to you by the #1 dentist in the area, the place you need to go, Pierce Dental Group. Pierce Dental Group has 2 locations, one in downtown Cincinnati, one in northern Kentucky. They are the premier dental group providing world-class experience and confident smiles. You want to be confident in every aspect of your life. Well, your smile is the first thing so many people see. You want that confident smile. You can get it with Pierce Dental Group. Their downtown location was established in 1942. They have over 1,300 5-star Google reviews, and they provide everything from cosmetic services to dental implants, Invisalign, and routine care. So look no farther. The number one dentist is here for you. They also offer flexible payment options and pride themselves on maximizing your dental insurance. Visit them online at piercedentalgroup.com. That's PEARCE dentalgroup.com, or search Pierce Dental Group on Instagram or Facebook.
Locking in here on segment 2, we're going to talk matchups between Jaguars and Bengals. James, I'll do the honors and let you go first.
Well, you mentioned Trey Hendrickson, and he's got 10.5 sacks this year. Trey Hendrickson. I also saw that Cam Robinson was put on injured reserve earlier this week. And so let's dive into that. Who's going to be tasked with stopping Trey Hendrickson, who's obviously the Bengals' leading sack artist at this point of the year?
Walker Little, who had been playing left guard, but he is better at left tackle, a former second-round pick in the same.
We know about Walker Little. 2021. Yeah, we talked about him, and, well, the Bengals did not pick him. Go ahead.
Yeah, but they got Walker Little. They made a trade at the trade deadline for Ezra Cleveland from Minnesota to play guard. Yep. And it turns out he's a better guard than Walker Little is, and Walker Little may or may not be a better guard, a better tackle than Cam Robinson, but Walker Little is definitely a better tackle than he is a guard. So I think it'll be on him. I think it'll be on a little chipping from the tight ends, and I think they'll be smart to get the ball out of their hands very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's – you don't sound concerned. And usually when a top left tackle goes out, a starting left tackle, it's like, oh, well, it's going to be this guy, but – and there was no buts. There was no transitions. It was, Walker Little. He's better at tackle. So – there you go. I think that's a huge matchup, though, because if this Bengals team is going to slow down the Jags offense in a big play potential offense, and the reason I say that isn't just the Jags, it's the Bengals. The Bengals have given up big plays to every team they've played this year, it seems like, including the Steelers last week, which they had no business doing. You have to get to Trevor Lawrence. You can't let him go off script and let him move around back there and even when someone's not open, by the extra second so he can find Calvin Ridley deep downfield or find Christian Kirk. And so I think that matchup, Trey getting to Trevor, that is huge. And if you can prevent that with Walker Little and some chips from the tight end, you take it all day long if you're Jacksonville.
That's a very, very good point. Mine is Jaguars. The matchup that they have to watch out is them versus themselves. And I know that sounds like I'm describing Georgia or Alabama. Like it
sounds cocky right now.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
So obviously, obviously, the reason I feel that way is because they have to pay attention to their opponent and not the press clippings and the lack of respect that they are getting as an 8-3 football team. They went to Houston and won a game against the Texans last week, where Trevor Lawrence had what I thought was his best game as a pro. And that still wasn't good enough for people to talk about Trevor Lawrence. They talked about C.J. Stroud, who also had a really, really good game. And I just think the disrespect, which can be a good thing if harnessed and used the correct way, is it could also preoccupy you if you do it the wrong way. And you could start looking past opponents and you could start playing to try to impress people instead of going out and being fundamentally sound and doing the things that you have to do. And then you find yourself in a dogfight with a team that is used to getting to the AFC Championship game at a minimum. Now, they don't have their quarterback, okay? We've already discussed that, and we understand that they're not the same team. And I don't believe T. Higgins and Taj Boyd are those guys going. Yeah, Tyler Boyd. Are they going to play?
I think T's got a real shot. Tyler will. T's got a good shot, though. I think he might be back and trying to impress in front of his former college quarterback.
Yeah, so that's dangerous. That's absolutely dangerous because if you've watched them for the last few weeks, you haven't prepared for that. You've been preparing for a team that's going to try to grind it out and make things easy for their quarterback. So that's why I say you can't get caught up in yourself too much. You have to not play to protect or to earn the respect of national media. None of those guys matter, man. The only thing that matters, the game is just this simple. James, it's tried and true. Blocking, tackling, kicking game. That's it. Blocking we sometimes make this so hard. It comes down to blocking, tackling. The team that does that the best is going to win. No boneheaded penalties.
Yeah.
Get them off the field on third down. Don't give them confidence. And so really, for me, it's Jaguars against themselves. But that doesn't mean that the Bengals are not formidable, because they are.
I think you mentioned the tackling part. That's been such a topic here in Cincinnati as well. Logan Wilson suffered a sprained ankle against this past week. And so we'll see there against the Steelers. We'll see if he can go. I think he's trending in the right direction. You have the extra day, so we'll see. But tackling, they have to tackle Travis Etienne. They have to bring down Evan Ingram. Pat Freiermuth had a career high receiving yards this past week against them. I'm sure Jacksonville is going to see that and say, oh, well, we can get Ingram, who's more athletic than Freiermuth. He's a little smaller, but he's certainly more athletic. We can get him in space and throw him those seam routes, and we can try to get deep balls to Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, because it worked. Deontay Johnson got open downfield, and Freiermuth got open downfield. George Pickens had an explosive play. And I'm just looking back at last week. That's the other aspect here, this defense. And the reason I'm harping on the defense so much, I have lower expectations for the offense. They don't have Joe Burrow. And we've spent a lot of time this week on Locked On Bengals. So if you're looking for that, you go to it. We talked a lot about the offense and how they can change things and how they can be a little bit better. But if you're going to win in Jacksonville, you have to make sure that this Jags offense doesn't score 28. Because if they get to 28 or they get to 30, it's a lot to ask the offense to go out and do. And
so that's the number 28. I was wondering where the threshold was of. Okay,
I mean, you want to keep them under 20, and they did that last week, but they got crushed on time of possession and still gave up a ton of yards, over 400 yards. And the Steelers they're not like that. The Jags, they do put up 400-yard games, and so how bad could it be if they don't come ready to play? And I think they will, because this is kind of the season on the line game, where if you win, you're 6-6, you can lick your wounds a little bit and see if you can make a run. And if you lose, well, you've lost 4 straight, you're 5-7, and you're no longer in the hunt, as they say when they show the playoff picture in the AFC.
It's going to be huge. I got a feeling that if the Jaguars are able to put it all together and walk past them, nobody's going to give them credit, because the first thing they're going to say is, well, they were without Joe Burrow. Good news for Bengals fans. I don't know if y'all know this. The Jaguars have played better on the road than they have at home. They won 8 straight games on the road. That is unheard of in the National Football League. 8 straight. They won. So they've struggled to really be consistent at home. They played a pretty clean game last week. They got hammered 3 weeks ago by the 49ers at home. So I think that was a moment where they actually learned a lesson. So we're going to do keys to victory. We glossed over it a little bit. Keys to victory and predictions. Of course, I'm going to pick the Jaguars to win, and I'll let James surprise you with who he is going to take.
Of course. Bengals fans are going to crush you now.
Why? Bengals fans like me, man, because I'm like y'all. I'm like your cousin. You know what I mean?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
We have to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for your 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts like James and myself of Locked On, plus our national shows that James and I also work on covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. James and I will discuss our predictions and how we think this game is going to go. We'll do that in just a second here on crossover between Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Bengals. DoorDash is our absolute favorite delivery service for our groceries and our food. One thing we really love about DoorDash is the fact that DoorDash delivers from your local favorite joints, the little small joints like the pizzeria that's 5 miles outside of my front door. And they've been there through some tough times for me and my family, and other people have even used their DoorDash accounts to send us food while we were going through a little bit of a rough time. So you can get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED 23. I'll say it again, 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms and conditions do apply.
Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. What does that mean? Well, you could go to the NBA, you could look to the NFL and all of the Sunday games with your team, whether it's Jaguars or Bengals, playing on Monday night. You have a full slate of Sunday games to wager on with FanDuel. And again, all you have to do is place a winning $5 money line bet. Boom, you get $150 if your team wins. Plus, they have the latest spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So maybe you're like Tony and you think the Jags are going to roll, obviously. Or maybe you think the Bengals are going to pull off the upset under the Monday night lights. Regardless, get to FanDuel.com/lockedon and get going today. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
As we roll along here, segment 3 of the crossover edition, Locked On Bengals, Locked On Jaguars, it's now time to go the keys to victory. I think Trevor Lawrence needs to have a good showing on national TV. Make sure that he's on point, the leadership is intact, and they put up some points. They don't turn the ball over. And as with any young team, make sure bad plays don't turn into a bad series. You have to have a short memory, get over it. I think there'll be a lot of pressure. In the past, Trevor's arm has been very lively at the beginning of games because he's so excited. He's kind of cut that back a little bit. But he does have more interceptions this year than he had last year, and he has to continue to work on trimming that down. And I do know that the Bengals have some very, very talented players in the secondary that could absolutely come up with the ball. So it's all on Trevor Lawrence. We have to take advantage of the advantage that we have, and you guys don't have Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence has to be the big guy in the room, the alpha in the room, and play well on a night when the Bengals are not playing with their star.
Yeah, my keys to victory. Let's start with the offense. I've talked a lot about the defense on this show, but like I said, the offense has been the theme. Jake Browning has to be better, and the coaching staff has to put him in a better position as well. And so I'm expecting more under center this week. I think that lean on the run a little bit more. They're not a run-first team, ladies and gentlemen. So guess what? They're going to throw it more than they run it. That's who they are. That's who they're going to be moving forward. That doesn't mean they can't run it more. And whether it's Joe Mixon, Chase Brown, I think both guys could see touches on Monday night. Getting efficiency out of the run game will be important. But Jake Browning just has to be better. He left some plays on the field, not just the turnover. You look at his final numbers against the Steelers, they look really good. I mean, 19 of 26, 217, a touchdown and a pick. You take that. But it's got to look better. I'm fine with those final numbers, but it's got to look better. The eye test didn't match the numbers. And so I think that's the start. Jake Browning has to play better. You got to get this ground game going a bit. If you get T. Higgins back, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that's your advantage. There's no combo like that. And so lean on those guys. You're going to be a pass-first team. Lean on those guys, especially if T isn't limited at all. Jamar had 6 targets last week. That has to be at least 10, but I would say doubled against the Jaguars. And then on defense, a couple of things that you hit on there. You have to make sure Trevor Lawrence does turn the ball over and does commit a fraudulent interception or two early that keeps you in the game, that gives you some confidence, that gives you some momentum and takes the crowd out of the game. So winning that turnover battle is huge, limiting the big plays, not allowing deep balls or explosives. And part of this has been a tackling issue where like Noah Brown a few weeks ago for the Texans catches a pass and breaks like 4 tackles because they're swiping at the ball. I get the turnover thirst. There's also a balance there. And so they need to have that balance, make the tackles when they're there, not give up huge explosives. They might have Cam Taylor-Britt back this week. DJ Turner II, the rookie, has played well in the secondary. The matchup I'm looking at, and I didn't talk about it much last segment, Dax Hill versus Evan Ingram. I think that could be one that is big. So there are a lot of keys to victory, and a lot of things have to happen around the quarterback now. Before it was, all right, Joe, you can go hide a bunch of these flaws if they happen. Now it's the other way. All of these guys have to step up around Jake Browning for the Bengals to get a victory. And Heck, I might as well give my prediction now. Obviously, it's early with the Monday game, and we do these crossovers earlier in the week, and that they make it tough. I think the Bengals are going to be competitive. I think it's hard for me to pick against a team that is where the Bengals expected to be this year, vying for the top seed in the AFC, vying for a division title. But I do think it's going to be competitive. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think the Jags are going to run them out of the building. There will be a moment, much like last week. The Bengals had a 7-3 lead. They were in field goal range. And Jake Browning throws an interception.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers went down, took the lead, and never gave it up. In that moment, that interception, instantly, everyone's like, yep, that's the moment. That stinks. That might be the game. I think there will be a moment like that. And I'm not necessarily saying it's an interception, but there's a moment like that where we're like, man, they fought hard, but that's the moment. And I don't know what it'll be, but I'll take the Jags in a close one. 23-17. They don't get to that 28, but the Bengals don't get to 20, and the Jags win on Monday Night Football.
Bro, I'm gonna show you how wired in we are together. I was just gonna tell you that the score is gonna be 23-17 with the Bengals with the ball trying to go down and win it.
See?
And watch this. And they have that moment. And then the Jaguars run the clock out, kick a field goal, and make it 26-17. So that's my score, 26-17. I knew, man, we would join at the hip for a reason, bro. Look, we almost thinking wild. Just alike. It's wild. It's crazy. And I'm sitting there like, did this dude just say 23-17? And I'm sitting here thinking that that's what the score is going to be until something happens, a moment, and then the Jaguars end up kicking a field goal to seal it. Yeah, that's what I believe. So if that happens, though, that is a good competitive game, but it's still a win for Jacksonville, and it gets them to 9-3, and they remain tied with a bunch of teams at that top with only 3 losses. I got a question for you. Have you guys missed Jesse Bates, and have people stopped talking about your offensive line? Has the offensive line played better to the point where folks stop talking about it?
What are you trying to do? At the end of the show, you're just trying to poke. We already talked about how Joe Burrow's out. You're just trying to poke these.
Burrow hurt his wrist, though. He didn't get hurt running for his life like he did on that video you sent me.
I agree, but other fans don't feel that way. I think a lot of fans are still pissed at the offensive line. The offensive line, they haven't been good run blockers this year. They've been solid pass blockers. Now, at times, is it ugly? Yeah, when you throw it and you drop back 45 times, 50 times, that's part of it in life in the NFL when you're doing that, especially against these elite pass rushers. But a lot of people think I've been too soft on the offensive line. That's okay. That said, Jesse Bates, oh man, yeah, they missed that man. They missed that man a lot. That guy,
pick six last week. You know, Jesse Bates is like, I wanted Jesse Bates real bad a couple of years ago when he was going to hit free agency. But from the Jaguar side, the talking points that people talked about other than Trevor Lawrence, which I think is absolutely bogus, that they keep wondering if he is living up to stuff. Trayvon Walker, you're starting to hear less and less talk about Aiden Hutchinson, and that's because he has more sacks. He has 4.5 sacks through 11 games. He only had 3.5 last year. But folks are starting to see his work on film. And it's also led Josh Allen to be sitting at 11.5 sacks this year and be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. So he's playing a lot better. He's a bully. And even the fans in Jacksonville have stopped looking at the stats of sacks and started to realize his importance on this team. So he's a game wrecker, man. And that's something that we need to pay attention to. Something else everyone needs to pay attention to is Locked On, our new national show. Yes. Locked On Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And with that, I will say not goodbye, but see you later to my brother James until I see you this weekend here in Jacksonville. I might put a meal on you or something, man, but you gotta get ready for it now. I mean, you don't eat all that.
Ready right now.
You sit there working out and all of that. You don't be eating all that stuff. I'm talking about oxtails and maybe some lima beans and cornbread. I'll put it on you, man. You'll go home needing to buy a bigger shirt. You hang around with me for 2 days. resident fat boy stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Hey man, no, that oxtail, you know what that does? That's fuel. That's lifting fuel. I can already feel it.
You always got to bring it. You got to bring it back to working out. The thing
You
that
brought
I don't
it
do,
up. I'm just
the
saying.
thing, the thing that I don't do, you got to bring it right back to working out. I'm trying to get you fat, and you saying that's just protein. So
if an NFL team ever needs a 5'9", pretty in shape guy just to come in, I might be able to sign to the practice squad. That's all, Tom.
Yeah, you 5'8", but that's all right. We ain't gonna.
Oh, no way.
I'll let you go ahead. I'll let you go ahead and lie.
Yeah,
I'll let you lie here on TV, and we ain't gonna worry about it, man. But that being said, Bengals fans, Jaguar fans, enjoy the game this weekend. For James Rapien and Tony Wiggins, y'all take care of each other.
5'8". You 5'8".